What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. I'm the Big Nerd, and I'm here to try to teach you how to paint a face. Let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, as you can see, we have our head and face primed black with a heavy white zenithal. This is going to work well with either straight acrylics or with contrast paints. I did this with an airbrush, but you can do this with dry brushing as well. So let's go ahead and get into the first steps of getting this face painted. So first of all, we're going to start with a dark red. I'm going to be using Pro Acryl's Burnt Red. This is already on my palette, so I'm going to go ahead and get that. We're going to take that to a basically glaze consistency, nice and transparent. I always test it on my finger. If you can see the flesh underneath, then you know you've gotten to a glaze consistency. You'll also be able to see that on the miniature itself whenever you put down the paint, because you'll still be able to see a lot of that white poke through. And we don't want this to be super opaque, but we just want it to get the model tinted pretty dark red. And the reason for this is this deep red is going to give the illusion that we have blood in this face, which if you're painting a pale face, for example, you would not want to do this step. You would maybe want to go with like a, purple or a light blue, like a much more cool color, unless you want to go kind of like a dark color. But now you should have a dark red face. We're going to let this dry. Next, we're going to take a bright red. I'm going to be using Pro Acryl's Priral Red, which is this here. And again, I already have this on my palette. So we're going to take that down to a glaze. And then we're going to add that to the high areas of the face. So like the bridge of the nose, the forehead, the top of the head, the ear, the cheeks, the chin a little bit. And you just want to get this to be a brighter red. It does not need to be the world's best transition or blend or anything like that, but you just want a brighter red to be on those more prominent areas. That way, whenever we put down our flesh tone, we get some of those pre-established highlights, basically. So it may be kind of hard to see on camera, but we have a highlighted up red there. Then we're going to take our first skin tone, which is going to be advanced flesh tone, which I'm going to be using throughout the whole process, just with different mixes to achieve different results. So for the first layer, we're going to take the advanced flesh tone, get it down to a wash, which needs just a little bit more water, like that. And then we're going to glaze that on top of the face. Or just any part that you want to be skin, basically. For this demonstration, I'm not being super careful. If I'm running over to like electronics or something like that, else on the head. We're here just to talk about painting faces. Get a little bit more from my wet palette. Then we're going to let this dry. This is what we have at the moment as far as the face goes. All right, now that we have that dry, we're going to start the next process, which is pretty simple. We're just going to start to highlight. So we're going to take a little bit of the flesh tone, just a touch of the red and a little bit of white to make a rosy cheek or flesh tone. We're going to take that, and this is going to be our initial highlight passes on the top of the nose, the eyebrows, just dot the cheeks like that. Get the upper lip. Top of the ear there. You just basically want to catch anything that would be catching your directional light. So I know it may be hard to see on camera, but you're going to have what looks something like this, which is going to see highlights in those areas. You can kind of see it on camera there. And then our next step is going to be further highlighting. So we're going to get a little bit of the skin tone and just the white and mix it here, which I've already done previously. We're just going to take a little bit of that, and again, not real heavy-handed like I just did. But we're just going to try to dot the cheeks. And then we're going to do the ridge end of the nose again and hit the eyebrows. I'm gonna get that lip right there. Top of the ear. And then we're gonna take a little bit more water. Make sure it's really watered down into a glaze, and we're just going to glaze on some top highlights on the head like that. And whenever you're doing glazing, you want to be mindful of where you're picking up your brush from, because that last point of contact is always going to have paint, and it's going to make a little dot of basically a bright highlight. So you kind of want to hide those if you can. But you should have something like this now. And then the next step is going to be basically giving some shadow underneath some areas. You want to just a very thin, I'm using Plum from Pro Acryl, and you just want to do where you would think there'd be some naturally laying shadows, so like right underneath the cheeks here. Try not to go too heavy-handed, just enough to shade right underneath the lip and on the chin, over here underneath the cheek again. You can put a little bit in the mouth. But yeah, you don't want to go too heavy-handed on it, but just enough to shade those areas down a little bit. Simple faces like this, the last step that I typically do is I get a black wash or Nuln oil, get a little bit on my brush and just as carefully as you can dot the eye sockets. And that's just gonna give the impression that, again, it's a shadowed area. And on the tabletop, you're never gonna see pupils that you're painting anyway, in my opinion. So I don't stress about it. If you want to be a little extra, you can take a little bit more of that white, mix it into your previously made flesh tone glaze, like I'm doing here. Make sure you just get a little bit, and you can just very carefully dot on some point highlights onto those raised areas. You should end up with something like this. So as you can see, this is a little bit on the bright side, so what I'm going to do as a final step is I'm going to take our flesh tone, I'm going to get a lot of water, and I'm going to make it into a very thin glaze. And you can just, again, test that on your finger. And I'm just going to glaze over those high spots like so. And let that dry. And since I was a little heavy-handed with the glaze, I'm going to take a little bit of our black wash again and just try to poke that into the eye sockets as best as I can. And the mouth. And we're gonna call that done, at least for a basic face. I think that looks pretty good, and it'll look good on the tabletop. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I hope y'all have a great day. See y'all next time.